10 billion bottles of every single year, but not all those bottles taste the same. A lot of people say the Mexican version of it tastes a lot better than the American version, which kind of sucks, and here's why. Evidence of this, we gotta go back all the way to 1886 when Coca-Cola was made by pharmacist John Pemberton, who made a bunch of promises about Coca-Cola saying it'll boost sex drive, it'll help with anxiety, it'll help with all these issues, but it wasn't actually sold in bottles or cans. Instead, it was sold from fountains like this, which they'd sell to pharmacies. Coke was only sold as a fountain drink for about a decade until 1894 when this place right here, the Via Hart Candy Store, noticed that a lot of their customers just didn't want to wait to get the Coke served to them, so instead they thought it was a better idea to bottle the Coke in glass bottles and just sell it to people that way. So Coke began moving to glass bottles, and then in 1916 created the iconic glass bottle we know today, and they kept doing that for about 50 years, but the issue was the cost began to eat at them. Where the glass bottles cost 15 times as much as plastic, it's a lot more expensive to ship because of the cost of the weight, and then also at the same time they just break a lot easier. That's why in the 1970s for the United States, Coke really moved away from the glass bottles entirely, where now 60% of their sales are done through plastic bottles, 40% are done through cans, and just under 1% of glass. But while Coca-Cola got rid of glass bottles in the United States, they didn't do that for Mexico. Mexico is a huge market for Coca-Cola because they introduced the product there in 1921, which is 30 years before Pepsi decided to do that. So because of that, to this day, Coke owns the soda market there with 75% market share. Two reasons that Coke never really got into selling plastic bottles in Mexico. The first one being the climate, where it's so hot there, there's this fear that the plastic can actually melt into the soda to make it taste different. Second is recycling, where Mexico does have a much better recycling system for glass than the United States do, where a lot of their delis have these drops where people can just put in glass products at any time, so it's a lot cheaper for Coke to work with glass there. Glass bottles are definitely a big factor for why Mexican Coke tastes better, because they actually have 15% more carbonation, because carbonation is less than plastic or cans, so that's one big factor for why it has that more crisp taste going for it. It's just one factor. The other factor is also sugar. America is actually really against importing sugar from other countries, and that starts with 1934 and also FDR, where basically what happened was the sugar prices collapsed and farmers were suffering from it, so they put tariffs and all these other rules on importing sugar just to protect U.S. farmers. And that continued in 1981 with the Farm Bill and Ronald Reagan, where they wanted to protect sugar farmers in the U.S. as well, so because they put this massive tariff on sugar, which was 18 cents per pound. And on the flip side, there was Richard Nixon in the 1970s, where with inflation, the price of everything is going up. And before that, America was actually paying corn farmers money not to grow corn to stabilize the prices, but Richard Nixon did the exact opposite, where he started pouring hundreds of millions of dollars in subsidies for farmers to grow corn to try and get food prices down. Because corn with Richard Nixon got really, really cheap, but sugar under Reagan and FDR got really expensive, Coke made the decision to move away from sugar for corn syrup, and a lot of people say it just doesn't taste nearly as good. I've not had Coke in over a decade, but if I go back, it's going to be in a glass bottle like it should be, and with that, I'm Charles Paul. Subscribe,